Hello, everyone, and welcome to this recording of Sales Enablement. This session, which I've actually had a chance to teach halfway through, I'm going to go ahead and record this again in case you ever want to watch it and view it and prepare for your exam as well. This is also part of what we'll be doing today, which is the 27th in class where you will not necessarily be having me discuss this in class, but this is in place of class where you can use the time today in class for working on your next assignment. But having said that, I'm going to talk to you a little bit more about what sales enablement is. And by now, having done the assignment, you should have a very clear idea about what sales enablement is. We talked about this. It is the process of making sure that you provide your sales organization with the right kind of tools, skills necessary for them to have a good conversation with the customer and be able to be successful. Right? Gone are the days when you would actually have to bring in salespeople into a classroom and provide them with the right kind of training. And then salespeople have to go out there and then have to go with old brochures that have been printed earlier that are not up to date, and then have conversations with customers who today are more prepared than ever. So again, sales enablement in the era where your customers are increasingly doing their homework online, where 77% of the research is done by customers online, where they consume 5 pieces of content, and 57% of a buying decision is made. Under these conditions, it becomes more imperative and more important for the salespeople to be able to have and manage a conversation with the customers. And to make it a little bit more complicated, if there are going to be 6.8 people involved in the customer's decision-making unit, then how do we make sure that our salespeople are equipped with the right kind of knowledge, not just about the customers, but about what they have to sell? And can we do this in a most effective way is what sales enablement is all about. But sales enablement has also progressed beyond helping the salespeople with providing the right kind of information to talk to the customers, to the point where it's also about making sure that you onboard your employees as fast as possible. So every time you have a new person joining your organization, a sales organization has to wait for a long time to actually educate the salespeople about what is the way of selling within that particular organization. How would you go about it? What is the product portfolio that you have to go sell? How do you sell to different kinds of customers? And all of this can be made faster if you use some of the concepts of sales enablement. So sales enablement has gone from just marketing, creating content that can be much more dynamic when used by salespeople. It's also gone into helping organizations, especially sales organizations, on board or make sure that their employees become productive faster. And that's where sales enablement is. And by being able to provide these kind of tools where salespeople can become faster, it also gives chance for sales managers to go in to these systems and actually coach their sales people a lot more effectively based on the specific needs of every individual salesperson, rather than just making an assumption about whether a salesperson is good or not and offer generalized coaching. You can customize your sales coaching towards making this possible. And that's what sales enablement is about, helping the sales organization be successful, mostly by providing the right content to the salespeople at the right time to the right people, by making sure that you onboard your sales talents to become a lot more effective and efficient. And last but not the least, achieve this by also helping sales managers coach their sales teams better, right? So now again, as I said earlier, why are we using sales enablement? There are lots of reasons out there that, again, you no longer can go in and then wing it with your customers. You really have to provide customized content. And that level of customization needed, given the very, very knowledgeable customer today, makes it very important that salespeople cannot do this by themselves. They will need marketing to help them understand the different personas. Personas, hopefully you remember from your time in marketing automation and inbound marketing, where depending upon whether I'm talking to a buyer or I'm talking to an influencer or a user, I am creating specific content and questions that trigger those specific individuals. So if marketing can do that and then push it to salespeople, then salespeople can become more effective in their job. And essentially, if I'm not able to do it, if I'm not going to be able to work with sales, your productivity of salespeople is decreasing, right? There's research that says that anywhere between 50 to 70% of salespeople are not hitting their quota. This was numbers from 2018. So which means that if your customers are becoming more demanding and they're asking more, and if salespeople are not able to meet the requirements of the customers or answer the questions of the customers, you're going to have your salespeople not being as productive. Now, as a result, marketing, because of the fact that marketing is helping the demand generation by doing inbound marketing, initial qualifications, they are also asking, saying, wait a minute, we need to be taking on more and more sales quota rather than just saying we're doing marketing stuff and we are happy if we create awareness. That marketing increasingly is going into the domain of sales. So which is a good thing and a bad thing for sales, because if marketing can actually help salespeople sell to those customers who are very demanding but not necessarily very reactive, then if marketing can close those deals, great. It frees up the time of the salespeople to go out there and focus on those customers who are receptive to what the salespeople have to do. But on the other hand, if marketing is going to take on more and more sales quota, it might actually take the budget away from sales organizations. And that is something that hopefully you have read in the article that I attached, which is Ending the War Between Marketing and Sales. You actually want, if marketing is taking on more sales quota, salespeople should not feel threatened that marketing is not going to come and ask for more and more of their budget. And that budget would have gone to pay on the salaries of the salesperson and everything else. That's something we need to understand, that marketing is becoming more powerful, but then salespeople need to understand how can they leverage the power of marketing, and everything must be measured today, so that in case my boss wants to know, hey, how much money did I spend on your training, dear salesperson? How much money did I spend on marketing? And am I getting the return based on it? So as more and more focus comes on measuring it, sales enablement is a way by which you can actually keep track of what we did to specific salespeople at what time, and is it paying dividends, and is that salesperson becoming more effective? Is that salesperson using more of the content that marketing is creating? And that is what is becoming more and more important, right? So how can sales enablement make a lot of sales teams effective? Of course, as I said earlier, is that sales organizations now can make sure that depending upon where and when they're talking to their customers and the persona of the customers they're talking about, you can actually help by giving salespeople the right content to talk to the right customers at the right time. Sales enablement is very interesting, because in the past, what would happen is that you would go in, and I remember the time when I was a salesperson, I would actually have a brochure, and if I would have the right brochure, sometimes the customer would ask something where with the brochure that I had, I was very limited in what I could do with it. But imagine that the brochure is no longer a hard brochure, but it's actually a digital brochure that I can actually carry with my iPad. I can actually go show this to the customers either in a PDF format or in a PowerPoint format or in whatever format. I can present it. I can customize it real time in front of the customers, depending upon what input I get from the customers, so that the customers become more engaged and actually can see how their input is going towards a salesperson creating the right offer that is customized according to the needs of the customers. And if I can do this well in front of the customer, I can also use the same technology to come back and actually record myself practicing doing the role play and get feedback from my colleagues. So for example, this is an example where instead of me trying to create a session on this class and trying to teach this class, if I was a salesperson and I were to actually see, hey, what would be my sales skills? I could actually use this technology to make a sales pitch, record myself, give it and send it to my sales manager or my peers or my friends or other people in sales profession within your organization, and they can actually use this and give you feedback without you having to be there as well. So you can actually start even training your salespeople based on this. And actually, as a matter of fact, when you see this recording, and except that now you're a student and I'm a faculty, but imagine that you become a salesperson and you're actually watching training about your products, about your sales pitches, about your sales skills being offered in this way. And as a matter of fact, a lot of you might will start working for companies where this is the way A lot of the training is going to take place where you have to watch trainings like these and then still have much shorter face-to-face interactions with your training as well. So training can also be provided with tools like these. So what does it mean when I mean sales and marketing have to work together? And you have done your assignment on marketing automation, where when you took a look at marketing automation, you must have done the typical the awareness, consideration, evaluation, purchase. Or for those of you who are hardcore marketeers, you know, and have had classes on communication, you'll know that this is the attention, the intention, and then after that you will have the attention, intention, or impression. Then you'll have the desire and the action, the AIDA model, AIDA model. So what you'll see is that, yes, marketing has to play a role in all of this. But what you'll see is that in the creation of awareness and consideration, again, marketing automation can play a very big role. Again, remember the idea of inbound marketing and outbound marketing that you did earlier, where you're creating awareness, you're getting the customer interested so that the customer now reaches out to your salespeople. And then sales enablement is once the customer has been programmed about what you can offer, you still have to customize your offer, and that's where sales enablement comes in. So marketing automation, what you learned so far, this is where you are, and the next logical step is the face-to-face conversation that the salespeople are going to have so that they help the customer evaluate the options and then help the customer make the decision about the purchase. So essentially what you need is that when you have marketing automation, still it's the marketing organization engaging with the customers. But once you have and once you progress down, remember the content that you use to create awareness can also then be handed over to sales so that when salespeople talk to the customers, then the customers can see that this is just a natural flow and any information provided by the sales organization is not going to clash with any other information that they received from other people within the sales organization who are not in sales. But for this is where you need a lot of sales engagement, where salespeople engage with the customers. And if you notice here, you see that increasingly marketing is going to engage with the customers through the World Wide Web, whereas now it's a salesperson engaging with the customer one-on-one. When I mean one-on-one, it doesn't have to be face-to-face. It can also be done using technologies these days, but that's pretty much what it is. But again, marketing has control over this. Sales has more control over this, but marketing and sales have to work together to make sure that the coherence, that the customer who is actually becomes interested in what you have to offer feels that it's a logical flow, that when they talk to the salesperson, this is just a continuation of the research that they've already done. But you have different levels of engagement, and based on that, marketing automation, where you already took a look at what kind of analytics, that is the cost per lead and stuff like that that you did earlier. And now you will also look at KPIs or key performance indicators specifically for sales enablement. Right? So the next question, of course, is that what are some key components of sales enablement? And here is pretty much what you have to understand is that a lot of times in a lot of firms, when they talk about sales enablement, their idea is a CRM platform, customer relationship management platform is what you've always had to try and maintain a relationship with the customer. But the CRM of the past is much more a tool helping salespeople manage their opportunities once they've had the conversation with the customer. But right now, what we're finding is that the customer today is more and more knowledgeable. So which means that a CRM tool alone does not necessarily help. But what we have to do is that you have to take and understand how the CRM tool works, but then engage this together with other aspects of sales enablement. So which means that if I am going to come in and I am going to use my CRM tool to say, hey, I visited this customer, and with this customer, I had the following conversation, which is normally what goes into a CRM tool. Now you need to ask yourself, but what did I converse with that customer? What did I tell that customer that got the customer interested to continuously engage with us? Which means that sales enablement is about creating content that helps the salespeople communicate with their customers and then convince the customers that they should continue the journey with this particular sales organization, right? And as I said earlier, that yes, this is the normal in the history of sales enablement. It is always seen as how do I bring content developed by my product and my technical people to help the salespeople communicate with the customers. But now it has gone beyond that, where it has gone into talent management. That is, hey, wait a minute, if I can go and have a one-on-one conversation with my with my customers, can I also use the same technology and the idea and the platform to also provide a faster way to train my salespeople, so that any new person coming into my organization right now, they can actually get trained much faster and they can become more productive faster. So essentially, that's why talent management, that is onboarding, employee onboarding and everything has become a significant part. So which of course means that when I onboard an employee, I also have to make sure that I have to see whether the person that I've recruited, are they doing the right job? Are they doing a good job in terms of performance analysis? What improvement, how can I enable them to become better in their jobs? And then of course, as I said earlier, is that providing feedback through coaching as well. And of course, what you see is that your ability to do this should result in the customer becoming more happy, because in every step that the customer goes through, so when the customer is going through different phases of their own buying journey, you can provide them with the right kind of content based on the communication of the salespeople, so that the buyer feels that they're well taken care of. And if they do that, and if they feel that, they're going to continue to do business with you. And then, of course, once you do this, the beauty about analytics of sales enablement is that you can go back and say, wait a minute, what are ways by which we can go ahead and do improvements to the way we used marketing to create awareness for our customers? And did we have the right kind of information so that the salespeople could go and do the right kind of communication? So you could go back and see where can we improve. So those are all the essential elements of enablement. But in your assignment, if you talked about content development and onboarding and coaching, that is what I'm looking for. But in your exam, we will be talking about all of these as well, right? So essentially, when we take a look at CRM systems, as I said earlier, CRM system stands for Customer Relationship Management. It's primarily used for companies to stay connected with their customers. And in fact, your next assignment is going to be on that. But essentially what is important, and here is where sales enablement comes in, is that when I have effective sales enablement tools, it helps me record the interactions I have with my customer, which can then get stored in the CRM system. The CRM then just becomes the storage, but your sales enablement system that goes on top of it helps the recording of the message that then gets into your CRM system, and together they can be used by the sales manager to review calls. You saw the example of Mobile Mini, of how Christopher can actually go into his CRM system, but goes into a sales enablement platform to see and look at calls made by the salespeople. And essentially, this is something that in the past that Christopher or sales managers would have to have the salespeople in front of them. But right now with technology, you can save valuable time, and Christopher can focus on very specific calls and actually go back and give targeted coaching advice to the salesperson, right? Now, if you go into, again, if you notice, essentially this goes back. So optimization of technology resources, it goes back into these building blocks. If you go into content development, again, as I said, what do we mean by content? It could be videos that are created by the marketing team, articles, and again, all that information that you see here, which was used in inbound marketing and marketing automation, can also be loaded on a sales enablement app so that the salespeople can carry it with them. And if the customer asks for specific information, either the customer can do their homework online, or the salesperson can show the same information on their iPads or on their Samsung or whatever their tablets are, making it much more easier for the customers to get that information. Now, if I am using that content, I can use that to actually create and also foster leads. That's what we talk about here. And then essentially what we need to make sure that if we have the right kind of content, we are constantly generating leads, either from our websites, but also when salespeople interact as well. Then, of course, when we go into talent management, as I said earlier, if you take a look at sales enablement, and this is interesting because historically, you would recruit a salesperson, and then, of course, once they came in, you would have to train the salespeople as well. But right now, sales enablement is working to the point where it actually even goes back and based on analytics will exactly say how many salespeople need to be recruited, what profile of salespeople need to be recruited. And here is what is very interesting, that a couple of sales enablement leaders that I've had a chance to talk to are actually saying that if sales enablement only gets involved once a person is being recruited, the efficiency is not as much. Whereas if sales enablement and the department of sales enablement is actually involved even in saying what kind of people need to be recruited, then it's going to be much more efficient in terms of the onboarding process. And of course, you can do all this. And just like you're watching this video, I can provide a lot of product training videos, skill-related videos over sales enablement platforms. If you actually take a look at Canvas, Canvas is referred to as an LMS, which stands for Learning Management System, where you map your own assignments and your content. Similarly, you have companies like Showpad, companies like Brainshark, which provide sales enablement platforms, which is just a glorified LMS, a learning management system as well. And of course, it helps you in terms of coaching and enablement as well. This is essentially what you have, is that if you take a look at where sales enablement can actually help a customer, again, the idea is that the more you keep your customer, you can also say customer, if you're talking to a customer, it can also be a prospect happiness. That's a person who's, that's a customer in waiting, a prospect that you need to convince. But one of the things you can do with sales enablement is to make sure that you can provide them with the right kind of knowledge, that it's easy for them to have access to the information that the customer is looking for, and customized according to their industry, their specific need, as well as their persona, right? And by doing this and by storing it in your sales enablement systems, in their memory, you can actually go back and anytime you interact with the customer, you can go back and pull up your previous reports and have a conversation with the customer based on where you left off. So essentially, it's a nice way for you to capture all that information that you have in your interactions with the customers. And then once I do this, and the next one is that intuition, and this is where AI comes in, that more and more of your sales enablement platforms now are AI, artificial intelligence enabled, where based on my conversations that I had with my customer, I can record it, put it through an artificial intelligence platform and run AI and actually see whether the salespersons were using the right words when they were interacting with the customers. And you can also take a look at what are the specific words that your customer are using and seeing whether those words are indicative of whether the customer wants to buy or is moving down the path towards buying. So there are a lot of ways by which sales enablement with AI, artificial intelligence, can help increase the intuition of the salespeople to be able to close the deals. And then, of course, sales enablement is also ways by which you can go back and see whether you made the right promises as a salesperson and whether you as an organization can deliver on these values to the customers. And of course, this is more from the process side, where anytime we are talking about sales enablement, we're talking about implementing technologies, we're talking about change processes, where salespeople now have to learn to use it, sales managers have to learn to use it. So again, you always have to look at, and how can we improve the process is something that you need to be thinking about, right? So now that begs the question, I'll have a sip of coffee. Says, what are ways to measure sales enablement success? You can actually do this by saying, what is the time to revenue? That is, how quickly can you generate a lead and close the sale? You can also take a look at whether your salespeople individually are attaining quota. You can also take a look at content usage. It is very interesting to see what kind of information are the salespeople passing on to their customers. And you can also see whether the salespeople are using the same content every time, or how many times do they use the same content with different customers. So from a marketing perspective, you can go back and improve your content based on how salespeople are doing it. I like this idea of sales funnel transition. So essentially, if I'm having good conversations with my customer, I should be helping the customer move them down the decision path. And in fact, your next assignment is the funnel management. And what does funnel management mean when a customer is 90% probable of buying a product as against 80% as against, when the customer is in the initial stages of talking with you, they might only have a 10% or a 20% chance of making the sale. But the more number of conversations you have with the customers, the higher the probability of sale. So which means that you go down the funnel and your chances of converting this prospect becomes much more positive. You can also keep a measure of whether your sales enablement says it can help you measure how many number of closed deals you have. So if your sales enablement is working well, you should be closing more number of deals. If your sales enablement is working well, you should be able to spend more time actively selling rather than just doing repeat grunt work. So for example, if I have sales enablement tools where I'm talking to a customer and it's automatically recording the conversation for it to be uploaded so that I don't have to go back and do a visit report, then that's very, very powerful in terms of how the salespeople now don't have to spend time doing a visit report. It can automatically, with new tools, you can actually do voice to text, where any recording that I have can easily be converted into a text, so that at any point in time, a sales manager can go quickly take a look at it and say, okay, yeah, dear salesperson, you might need to do this, this, and this the next time, and you'll be successful. And then, of course, you will always have the product mixes. That is the salesperson being able to sell all the products that they can sell, or are they only focusing on easy to sell products because they don't have the right tools and knowledge to sell the more complex products. Right? Now, in case any of you are interested in seeing what are the different kinds of sales enablement solutions out there, these are the names of some companies out there. You have seen sales enablement solution of Showpad. Membrane is also a very good solution. As a matter of fact, if you're interested, I can always send you a couple of recordings that I have with Showpad. And I'm also going to be doing a recording soon with Membrane. And stay tuned, and I can provide you more information on that as well. Right? So if that's the case, what is the most important aspect of sales enablement is, again, you should make sure that you have the correct technology, but in order for you to have the correct technology, you have to have clearly defined processes saying what is it that we expect the technology to do, and what does my typical sales process look like, and where can technology help in that sales process. Right? But in order for that process to work, you need a very, very good rapport or relationship between sales and marketing. And if you're able to get that, you can define your processes much better. You can say, for these processes, this is the support that marketing needs to provide sales. And if I do this and I can do this consistently, then I have a structured process in place that I can then put a technology on and automate it. So if you take a look at historically, what are some of the ways that sales services, what different kind of sales enablement is available, you'll see all the things that we discussed, but now this is mostly from the CSO insights. So sales enablement for them is training the salespeople, providing them with the tools. That's the content we talked about. How can they improve the sales process? Onboarding, we talked about it. Content services is that how do I train my salespeople on what we have to sell? That's pretty much what we have. And then we have all of the other aspects here as well. Okay? So again, the idea is that you have to use all this. And essentially what you have to understand is that as a sales enablement tool, we can actually get and record ourselves in sales situations and get peer assessments of people who can actually say you did well, you should improve your sales pitch in certain ways. Sales enablement can also help you provide the right kind of calculators so that as a salesperson, I can go to a customer and do an assessment of value for the customer and show them what is the return on investment by investing with you. And it can also help you provide the right kind of stories depending upon the persona sitting in front of you as well. But unfortunately, while sales enablement definitely can help a sales organization, this is something which is still 4 years old. It's probably gotten a lot better now. But take a look at this. Essentially, what you're saying is that only 9% of marketing content that is created by your marketing team is used by salespeople. So, which means that whatever money is being spent on marketing to create content, salespeople hardly use it. Right? What you also see is that if you don't have a sales enablement platform, the information that is created by marketing is stored in 5 different places, which makes it impossible for the salespeople to actually have access to it. That explains the 9% number out there, which is again is not surprising that if I, as a salesperson, I'm not necessarily getting the right kind of content, I'm creating my own content. And you combine the first one, 9% and 90%, it just tells you that marketing is just spending a lot of money on content that's not getting used. So sales enablement definitely calls for a better integration between marketing and sales that will then come up with the right kind of story to be told by the sales organization to their customers. And then that can also be then used as a platform to help onboard your employees and coach your employees as well. So that brings us to the conclusion of sales enablement, which I'll be posting soon. And again, you can use this to prepare for your exam later on, or the slide deck is also available as well. Thank you again for your patience.